Welcome to the attachment unit. In this series of videos, we're going to look at children's earliest interactions and how those interactions, both positive and negative, can go on to have long-lasting influences over the rest of their lives. We'll start, of course, at the very beginning, how a newborn baby infant and their mother begin communication. And I mean, exactly how do you communicate with a creature that knows no language or anything really of the world around it? But that communication is vital to the development of attachment and even the survival of infants. We'll then look at the first few years of the child's life, seeing how slowly infants go beyond their mother to build up attachments with all the other people in their lives. The PsychBoost flashcard app has a new feature. Test yourself with over 1,500 multiple choice questions, including every topic on A-level and GCSE psychology. Try paper 1 for free right now. And Patreon supporters can watch PsychBoost videos ad-free, learn from over 17 hours of exclusive exam tutorial videos, and access hundreds of digital and printable resources, including mind maps, quiz sheets, worksheets, teaching slides, and more. Caregiver-infant interactions. To start this attachment unit, I should define attachment. Attachment is when two people develop long and lasting emotional bonds. In this case, the two people are the infant and their caregiver. The definition should include that both the infant and the mother seek closeness to each other, and they feel secure when they're close to their attachment figure. We can see the closeness of this bond through caregiver-infant interactions, and two that we can be asked to define are reciprocity and interactional synchrony. So to explain reciprocity, it's a mutual turn-taking form of interaction. It's a bit like a conversation, with each person paying close attention and responding to the other's signals and cues. So the mother may smile at the baby, who then laughs in response. The mother then talks excitedly to the infant. Interactional synchrony sounds similar, but the important aspect of this interaction is it's simultaneous, meaning they act at the same time. They appear to be coordinated, matching behavior and emotional states. So the infant may wave its hands around in time with the adult's speech. Other interactions include direct imitation. So the infant and mother make the same facial movements like smiling. Sensitive responsiveness is the caregiver carefully paying attention to the infant's communication and responding appropriately. If the baby's upset, the mother comforts it, feeds it, or changes it, depending on what the infant is trying to communicate. As we go through the attachment unit, sensitive responsiveness will be an essential concept. You'll see all caregivers of infants talk with child-directed speech. Not just the parents, it's a sing-song voice with variable tone, very different to the monotone voice we use with adults. Its for child-directed speech is used to keep the infant's attention. I'll just note here, child-directed speech is the current technical term, but it has many other names, and one of the most common alternatives is motherese. I've found modern researchers see the term motherese as an example of gender stereotyping, as of course it's not just mothers who use this voice, and I'm not going to lie, I tend to talk to my cat like this. Bodily contact is also seen as vital for developing an attachment. This includes breastfeeding. It used to be that babies would be taken off their mother after birth to allow the mother time to recover. Now midwives ensure both parents experience skin-to-skin contact immediately after delivery to encourage bonding. Evaluations. There is evidence that infants will show reciprocity by imitating adults and can do this in the first few weeks of life. Mel Moore recorded infants and adults, with the adults making a series of facial gestures to the infant. The recordings were assessed by raters who were blind to the aims of the experiment. The results showed that the infants demonstrated reciprocity, responding with expressions that matched the adult's expressions. So when the adult stuck its tongue out, the infant appeared to stick its tongue out. When the adult smiled, the infant smiled back. Researchers Condon and Sander found evidence for interactional synchrony. They recorded neonates and adults interacting and then analysed the videos frame by frame, finding the infants move their bodies rhythmically in time with the sound of the adult's voice. This suggests the infants are born with an instinctive ability for social interaction. The research in attachment, including caregiver-infant interaction, tends to be very well controlled. Most studies will use multiple observers or record interactions so they can be analysed carefully. This focus on control suggests these studies have high internal validity. However, there is a big problem with infant research. Infants can't communicate their thoughts. So researchers need to use inferences. Inferences are guesses about internal mental states based on behavior. These inferences are ultimately guesses, so are not considered truly scientific. For example, it might be that the infant doesn't actually intend to imitate to communicate. Imitation might just be an automatic reflex response. Finally, infants on research is highly socially sensitive. Psychological findings are reported in newspapers and books, and parents will adapt how they interact with their infants and see themselves as good or bad caregivers based on psychological theories and studies. For example, findings that suggest it's essential for mothers to show a high level of sensitive responsiveness or develop interactional synchrony can be problematic for mothers who need to return to work quickly and struggle to find the time to connect to their infants. Take time to consider these evaluations carefully, as they can be adapted and used again in multiple parts of the attachment unit. Stages of attachment identified by Schaffer. The researcher Schaffer identified 4 stages of infant attachment. Stage 1 is called the asocial stage, which lasts from birth to 6 weeks. In this time, babies do display behaviours like crying and smiling to caregivers, but they'll also show the same behaviours to inanimate objects and can be comforted by any caregiver, showing no preference to any one individual. Stage 2 is indiscriminate attachment, and most infants are in this stage between 6 weeks and 7 months old. At this stage, it seems infants can tell the difference between familiar and unfamiliar adults, as they're seen to smile more at caregivers they recognise. However, they don't show stranger anxiety, distress in the presence of a stranger, or separation anxiety, which is distress in the absence of a primary caregiver. Stage 3 is a specific attachment stage, and most infants are in this stage between the ages of 7 and 9 months. In this stage, infants form a strong connection to their primary caregiver, most frequently their mother. When the mother leaves the room, the infant shows separation anxiety. They also start to develop stranger anxiety. The 4th stage is the multiple attachment stage, starting from around 9 or 10 months. At this point, the infant will develop additional attachments to other caregivers like their fathers, brothers, sisters, and grandparents. Showing distress when separated, the infant's level of stranger anxiety starts to decrease at this stage. Evaluations. Schaffer based the 4 stages of attachment on the results of a longitudinal study he conducted with his colleague Emerson. 60 working-class mother and infant pairs from Glasgow were studied. Initially, the babies were observed and the mothers were interviewed monthly for a year, with Schaffer returning at 18 months for a final session. Schaffer assessed the infants for stranger anxiety and separation anxiety. Finding separation anxiety occurs in most infants between 25 and 32 weeks, and stranger distress first happens around 1 month later. Schaffer also found that the strongest attachments seemed to form between infants and mothers, where the mothers consistently interacted with their infants. The results suggest that infant attachment happens in definable stages, and as infants share these stages, it's likely a biological process. The quick development of multiple attachments at 10 months indicates that the role of one maternal primary attachment figure is less important than first thought by researchers such as Bowlby. Schaffer's results also suggest that the quality of the parent's sensitive responsiveness influences attachment strength. However, we can criticise the Schaffer sample. The culture of working-class mothers in Glasgow in the 60s does not represent the rest of the UK or the world, so the findings lack generalisation. Also, the results lack temporal validity, as child-rearing patterns have changed significantly in the last 60 years. Schaffer's commitment to visiting the infants and mothers in their own homes likely resulted in naturalistic behaviours. The mother leaving the room and strangers visiting are typical situations in family homes, which means the tasks in Schaffer's study have a high level of mundane realism, so the behaviour recorded by Schaffer was valid. The role of the father. Schaffer's study found that for 65% of the infants, their primary attachment figure was their mother alone. 30% were both parents, and only 3% had the father figure alone as the primary attachment figure. This finding suggests initially the father's role is not as important as the mother's. However, at the 18-month observation, the researchers found that 75% of the infants had developed some attachment to the father, indicating fathers must play some role in the lives of the infants. One suggestion is the father's role is to provide active play activities, rather than the caring and comforting sensitive responsiveness shown by the mothers. This stimulating play is thought to encourage risk-taking behaviour in infants. In the modern world, with many women returning to the workforce, more men are taking on the role of the primary caregiver. This evidence to suggest that when in this position, the father's interactional style will shift to sensitive responsiveness. Research by Field provides evidence for both of these roles of the father. She observed 3 types of caregivers interacting with their 4-month-old infants: primary caregiver mothers, primary caregiver fathers, and secondary caregiver fathers. Both groups of fathers emphasized game playing, while the mother group focused on holding. However, the primary caregiver fathers and mothers showed more sensitive responsive behavior, such as smiling and CDS, than the secondary caregiver fathers, suggesting the primary caregiver fathers had adapted their behavior to a more sensitive, responsive role. The researcher Verissimo observed the early interactions between infants and their mothers and fathers, and then later observed the children's social interactions when they started nursery. They found that the best predictor of making friends in school was a strong attachment to their father, not their mother. This suggests that the father's role is to help with the infant's socialization. Like other infant research, researching the father's role is socially sensitive. If findings suggest the role of the mother is unique and can't be replaced by the father, father-led single parents and male gay couples may feel they can't fully support their children's development. On the other hand, if research suggests that fathers can show sensitive responsiveness, men may take a more active role in caring for their infants. We can also consider the economic implications. If the father's role is important for infant development, this could lead to legislation to equalize maternity and paternity leave. This could reduce the number of men in the workforce and cause challenges to businesses that must adapt. However, it could also help reduce the gender pay gap, as currently many women feel they need to take a career break to look after their family's children, not the fathers. I want to thank everyone over on Patreon for supporting the channel. Because of you, I've been able to teach part-time, meaning I can make PsychBoost on YouTube for everyone. And a special thank you to Kat Posnick and Ahmed Romani for supporting at the developer level. I do have extra resources that are exclusive to my patrons, so if you decide to sign up, you can grab those over my website. And these include over 100 exam question tutorial videos, of course including questions on the attachment unit. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next PsychBoost video.